Hey everybody, welcome. I hope that everybody's seeing me and hearing me and all of that good stuff. I'm Romi Hill, and I'm the designer and teacher and knitwear fanatic behind Designs by Romi. And this is all about my second clue for this year's 2025 Mystery Shawl Funston. So I'm so happy to see you all here in the comments, and I will definitely be answering all of your questions. So I'm still streaming from exile, so I do not have like all of my normal teaching stuff. So that means I don't have my samples, and I can't show you some of the knitted up things that I might otherwise show you about. I saw Jenny was asking about tension, and that's definitely one of the big things I'll be going over, so no worries. Anyway, so everybody who's in the comments, definitely just ask whatever questions you want to ask. I love answering questions. You make me feel useful, so that's always a good thing. So hi everybody. So it's really cool to see where everybody is. I am in Nevada, and so like northern Nevada, and it's fairly toasty here, so hopefully nobody else, well, I do actually see somebody from Rockland, which I think is pretty hot too. So anyway, I hope everybody is finding the mystery fun so far. And I hope you've all been to my Ravelry group. There are lots of people on there, and everybody loves knitting together. So I hope that you can hang out there with everybody. And I'm just going to check and make sure I haven't missed any questions. So I did see, I saw Jenny's, and let's see. Okay, so far so good. All right. Okay, so I'm just gonna switch over here to my hand camera, and there we go. I'm gonna turn the light on. There, better. Okay, so today we are going to bind off the top of the triangle. So this mystery, I was talking before and saying that it's constructed like a modern hat construction. That means that there is a triangle inside, and then like right up at the top, and then that triangle gets bound off across the top, and then stitches will be picked up around the edge. So that is what we are going to talk about today. So the first part of this clue talks about binding off the upper triangle. And if I can, let me find my, I actually have a pencil. So that's good, right? It's always good when I have a pencil. Okay, and a piece of paper. Okay, so modern hat construction. So what we've done so far is started at the base like this and then worked up. So this is the direction of the knitting. So now the second clue starts with this top part across here. So this gets bound off right across the top here. And then this, that little tip that we started at, that is going to be the bottom tip of that inner triangle. And so once this is bound off across the top, then we'll pick up stitches around the edge, all the way around the edge, and then from then on, we're going to be knitting out like this. So those little loops at the beginning of each row, those are going to be where the stitches are picked up. And having those little loops makes it super easy to be able to pick up the stitches around the side. So the top is going to be bound off with a reverse stockinette stitch I-cord, and it's a really nice bind off. It's got more oomph to it. It's a little bit more solid than just a normal like garter stitch across the top, but it looks like garter stitch, so it will blend really well in with the edge of the rest of the shawl. So that's where we're going to start. Okay. So I have this a little tiny, teeny tiny little triangle here. Down here I have my pin that's still marking that bottom loop. Your triangle is going to be much bigger than this, obviously, but I didn't think you wanted to see this gigantic, huge bind off across the top. Okay. So Christina asks if I'm looking at the right side of the triangle now. Yes, I am. So I'm looking at the right side. This is actually, the gauge on this is tighter than what I have listed in the shawl, and this is probably a good time to talk a little bit about gauge. For a shawl, this is actually on the tighter side for a shawl. And I just used this gauge because I think it's easier to see like with a thicker yarn. But if I were doing this, and actually when I knit the mystery, I used a fingering weight yarn. This is a DK, and my fingering weight yarn is at a much looser gauge. So I saw a question about whether someone should go down a needle size before. This looks really neat, but it's not going to really yield the kind of result that you probably want in a shawl. So this isn't going to be as drapey. So generally when I do shawl patterns, I will write it for a larger needle size than what the ball band might say. And it will look terrible at first because lace has a tendency to look bad anyway. And if you're using floating in particular with alpaca, for some reason alpaca looks 50 times worse than anything else when it's first knit up in lace weight. And then once you block it, it will look really nice again. It will stretch out, it will relax. So if you're a spinner and you have, if you set your yarns after spinning, like with steam, that's the same idea as this. You want your shawl to relax into like a floaty, kind of drapey, nice shawl to put around your shoulders. And so this looks tighter than what you're going to see, and that's totally okay. And if you want to check it, what you can do is just take a steamer or a steam iron or something like that and hit it with a little bit of steam while it's still on your needles, and you'll see like it will start to just sort of relax, and you'll see that it will actually still look pretty. So do not fear if yours is looking like something the cat dragged in, because that is completely normal. Okay, so let's start here. So I do have a couple of videos here that are linked, and I'm just going to start right here with the bind off for the upper triangle. So I like to use a double pointed needle with my other needle for two reasons. One is that it's just easier to handle with that short needle like this. Sometimes I tend to lose the stitches off the end of my needle at the end when I'm just using the other end of my working needle. And the second thing is you want this to be able to stretch across the top. So the double pointed needle that is specified in here is larger than the working needle. So that's going to let you be able to stretch the top out and block the shawl nice and wide. So we don't want anything binding and kind of pulling in and keeping it from blocking all the way out. So I'm going to do with my right side facing. I'm going to cast on 4 stitches using the knitted cast on. And a knitted cast on is literally you're just going to be knitting a stitch and then twist it and put it up on your needle. So I always keep my my needle in that stitch. So if you are an English style knitter, same, you're just going to knit that stitch and then you want to twist it, put it up. So this is 3. Okay. And now I'm just going to do the last one, continental. Okay, so that's 4 stitches. So I've just cast on 4 stitches. Here are my original stitches across here. And now I'm going to start on my bind off. Okay, so I'm just going to bring the yarn forward right here. And I'm going to purl 2 stitches. So I'm a continental knitter. This is just a regular purl. And I will show you how to do this English style as well. So I've purled 2 stitches. And now I'm going to purl the next 2 stitches together. Okay, so I have 3 stitches here. My yarn is in the back. And now I'm going to slip my stitches back over here. So my yarn is going to come around underneath this needle tip like this. And I'm going to insert my needle from the top here. So in other words, this working yarn here, that's going to go under my needle. And I'm going to insert my needle into the first stitch and purl 2, and now this last stitch here is the last stitch of the I-cord, and I am going to purl that together with a body stitch. Now I'm going to have my yarn to the back again. So when this starts out, it looks like a mess, and it will always look like a mess. Don't worry, that is just the way it works. So I'm just going to put this back on. I'm going to do this another time continental, and then I'll show you English. So again, my yarn came around the back here, so you can see where my yarn is across the back. And now I'm going to stick my needle into the stitch. My working yarn is coming under that needle and then up and around to purl. So I'm going to purl 2. And then purl 2 together. Okay, and my yarn is in back again, so I'm going to slip these stitches back over here. Okay, so I'm once again a terrible English style knitter, so bear with me here. So here's my yarn here, it's come around the back. I have to pinch to purl. So my needle is coming over the top of my yarn here. So it's going to go into the stitch, and then this is my working yarn coming underneath the needle, and then it's going to come over to purl. I'm going to purl 2 and then purl 2 together. Okay, so now my yarn is going to go to the back, and I'm going to slip my stitches back to my left needle, and now here's my working yarn here. I'm going to insert my needle here. The yarn comes underneath my needle to purl, and then purl 2, and now I'm going to purl 2 together and yarn to back. Okay, so this is what it looks like at first. It's pretty ugly. Looks awful on the back. Don't worry about that. So what we're gonna do is just kind of pull this a little bit, pull it a little bit out like that. And that is going to make the back start to look better. And you will see soon it will start looking better. So I'm just going to kind of whip through this. So I demonstrated it pretty slow a few times. And then I also have that other little video that is teeny tiny tutorial, and that will show you also how to do this. So I just want to get this bound off across the top here so that I can start picking up my stitches around the outside of the triangle. And I'm kind of keeping half an eye on the comment section. And it's so nice to see you all. And also we have quite an international contingent today, which is so cool. It's lovely to see you all here. Okay, so you can start to see now how plump this is. It's much stronger than a garter stitch, so that means it's not going to roll as much, and it's not going to get kind of wavy along the edge. This has a lot more strength to it, and it's nice and thick, and you'll find that your shawl lays really nicely with it. So I use this a lot on my shawls. I really like the way that it blends into garter stitch, but it also offers that support across the top there. So you'll see this on lots of my triangle shawls. In fact, I had kind of a special, I'm doing a little bit of an experiment, and those of you who get my newsletter will have seen I'm offering like a very steeply discounted pattern or ebook, because I know that lots of people out there are having tough times. It seems like it's just sort of going around right now. So so I'm hoping that we can all just kind of come together, and you'll get a really nice little inexpensive treat, and lots of you will purchase it, and so then I will make up for the deep discount as well. So the one this week is Headlands, and it has this bind off across the top as well. It is also constructed like a modern half shawl, one of my favorite constructions, and that Headlands is actually one of my favorite shawls. So if you're not subscribe to my newsletter, definitely subscribe. You'll get all sorts of goodies in there. So, okay, just going along here. I'm kind of trying to keep one eye over to the side and make sure that I don't miss any questions if anyone has questions. Okay. Let's see, any questions? Yay, I'm glad that it's helping Jenny. Yay, that's good. Okay, so to talk a little bit about what is coming up next, we have some slip stitch patterning, and if you're using mohair, I'm going to show you how to rip out mohair very carefully. And I know a lot of people don't like to use mohair because it's a little scary when you have to rip something out. But because I've had to rip out so much mohair in my life, I came up with a method of ripping it. So I'm going to show you that. And I hope, let's see, just looking around to see. I love how many, so we have lots of medical people and engineers and lawyers and people in tech who love to knit. I think it's really satisfying for the sort of like minds of a scientific bent. And I love that. Okay, so we're at the end here. So this is the very end. And this last stitch here is the yarn over in the previous row. So you can still see it though. See how that it still kind of pops out there, so you can see that. So we're right here, and I'm going to, right here, I'm going to bring the yarn around the back of the stitches here, and this is where I'm going to kind of make this look like the start of the garter stitch edging. Okay, so I brought my yarn around, and now I'm going to use my working needle, and I'm going to knit two together and then knit one through the back loop. So that is basically taking this, this stitch right here, that's the third stitch of the I-cord, that's kind of the back stitch, and it's moving it around the back by knitting two together there. You can see it sort of moves that back around the back, and now I have my knit one through the back loop. So this is, that's the start of the garter stitch along the edge. And now we're gonna move on to the transition. So what I'm gonna do is pick up stitches right along the edge here in these loops. So I want to call your attention back to this little loop here that was sort of covered up a little bit. You can kind of see it still right there. So we're going to use that, and then there's another, like at the base here, there's a tricky little loop. So here's the center that we had marked. This one right here isn't actually a loop, it's a stitch. So when you get down there, you can skip that one. This one that looks like it's a loop, that's actually a stitch. And you can tell because if you take a look at the back here and pull that, that's that first stitch of the first row that we worked. So work this one up at the top here. Don't work that little one at the bottom. Okay. So here we're going to do, I'm going to start with a yarn over, and then I'm just going to pick up a stitch in that loop. Yarn over, and then I'm just going to go all the way around here. So I see a question, is this yarn color number 2? This is my first one that I was using. So yeah, this is just some random yarn that I have that I'm using. So this is actually a DK weight. So if you are an English knitter, you're going to be yarn over and then pick up a stitch. So when I'm knitting English style, I generally do basically like a yarn forward when I'm doing a yarn over. So I bring my yarn forward and then work the next stitch, and then it creates a yarn over as it goes back. Okay, so we're not gonna pick up a stitch there. I'm going to add markers around the center here. Oops. Okay, and now just going to work a stitch into that center. So this is going to look a little messy at first. I'm going to kind of pull the tail just a little bit. I'm going to leave that pin for now and set another marker. Okay. So definitely leave that tail. Don't start knitting with the tail like I sometimes do. And now this loop here is fine. This isn't actually a real loop. It's not like the one on the other side that's trying to fool you. Okay. So I'm just going to zip up the other side. And get up here to the top. So let's see how many I have. I count a lot. So counting is good. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I want to make sure that I have the same number of stitches picked up. Okay. So one more. Here's my last one. Okay. So I'm going to pick up 2 stitches in the side here. And there isn't really a hard and fast rule for doing this, but what you want to do is make it look as seamless as possible. So I always work them through the back loop, and if I need help with that, I'll just pick up a double pointed needle and like stick the loop on my needle and knit that through the back loop. Knitting it through the back loop twists the base of the stitch, and so that's going to make it look neater. So then over here, trying to make this look not sloppy. So that's basically, that's the only rule. So only you can say what you like and what you don't like. Okay, so that is what it looks like so far. And this is going to be our middle stitch right here. Okay. And now I'm going to go on to the rest of the transition. So I did the row 1 and row 2. I'm going to knit everything through the back loop, which is going to leave some of these looking open, and some of them it's going to close up a little bit. So for instance, on all of the yarn overs, it's going to close them up a little bit. So generally you don't close yarn overs up like this unless you're doing a make one stitch. So these are going to look more like make ones. So here's my yarn over. I'm just knitting through the back loop. So we talked a little bit about this before last time, combination knitters and people who might knit with and have their stitches mounted with the right leg in back of the needle. This pattern assumes that your stitch is mounted with the right leg in front of the needle. So when I am knitting through the back loop, I am twisting my stitches. And that is what it looks like when they're twisted. Okay, so I saw Nicole was saying she puts her yarn in her mohair in the freezer for 20 minutes. So that definitely helps. Definitely helps to stick it in the freezer. I'm a little lazy and my freezer is usually downstairs and I'm usually upstairs. And so I didn't feel like running back and forth or sitting in front of the freezer and sticking it back in when it warmed up. So I'm going to show you how to do it if you also are lazy like I am and don't want to use your freezer. Okay, let's go along here almost to the end. Always better to have some extra stitches around the inside like this so that they can smooth out nicely. So this is what it looks like. You can see up close here what that looks like when some of those, when some of the stitches are yarn overs and they're kind of closed up. I really like the way this looks. And here's what the bottom looks like. So as a last step in this, we will adjust this tail down here. So no need to worry about it. Nothing will come out. It will just stay, it'll stay put like a good little tail. Okay, so yes, Son, I saw that you were saying this part reminds me of the 2023 shawl. Yeah, I was saying earlier, I really, and I think this was before you came, that I love using this type of construction. So it's the 2023 shawl has the same construction, a modern hap construction. Okay, so that brings us to the shawl body. So I'm going to put this aside for now. And before we get started on this and we start talking, start working with mohair, I am going to show you how I like to rip out mohair. So I have a little sacrificial mohair swatch here. So in case you need to rip out your mohair, this is how I do it. So and again, this is how I do it. Putting it in the freezer is also a good way to do it if you are not lazy like I am and don't mind running back and forth between the freezer and wherever you're knitting. So I like to pin at just a little bit. Okay, so here you can see, let's see, move this down a little bit more so you can see closer. Okay, so here you can see the stitches, and then in between each stitch there's this little bar of yarn here. So I'm going to grab one of those bars and pull straight up. So the trick here is not pulling side to side. So once I get over to the side here, I let that go and I work on the next row, pulling straight up, and then on the side, it will come out easier. So this is usually where you're gonna have the biggest problem, is over on the side. So when you pull straight up like this, it's going to help keep that from getting caught. And if it does get caught, if you're just using a pin like this, you can just sort of break it apart. So this is how I have ripped huge amounts of mohair. Just as long as you don't get going side to side and you just keep pulling straight up like this, you should be okay. Even on a cast on row, you will find that with a little bit of patience, it will come out. So here's my cast on row. I'm going to unpin this. Okay, and let me back out a little bit. Okay, so here is my cast on row. There's a little bit of binding, but not bad. And there we go. So all ripped out, no knots. Now I have a little pile of fluff. So yeah, so and Holly said it looks so much easier than tinking back. Yes, for sure. I think it's way easier to do it this way. It does not bind up and cause as many knots. So, and you can actually reuse mohair, even though I think it's sort of accepted that once you have to take back or like rip out mohair, that everything is over, you can't use that mohair again. But actually, you can. You just have to kind of get used to it a little bit, and then you're good. Okay, so let's go to the second page. There's not a lot new added except the T increase, which I'm going to show you here, and then the slipping with yarn in front and yarn in back, and I'm going to talk about those. And we're adding the second color, which is pretty fun. I always love adding the second color, and in this clue I just carry it up the side. So you can see here's the first color, and then the second color right here. Let me back this out just a little bit more so you can see. So here's color 1. It still has those batches of 5 here to help you count. And then the blue, that's your second color, which is the mohair for those of you who are using mohair. So let me see. Oh, Catherine says it will save my voice too from all that yelling at mohair. Yeah. Don't yell at mohair. Mohair is actually really nice. It'll be friendly with you. Okay. So again, on this, let's take a look at the chart. Again, we're going to start at the bottom here and then work up. So on this, because the chart increases so quickly, what I've done is incorporate more repeats as we go up the chart here. So you can see this bottom part, you're working 11 times in the repeat, and then this next part up here is worked 13, and then up here is worked 15. So you start out at the bottom, just working each repeat 11 times. Up at the top, you end up working each repeat 15 times up here. So let's take a look at the side here and how this chart kind of differs from what you might be used to. So this one, first of all, is what you see is what you knit. So that's showing the actual symbol that you're knitting. So for instance, on the back where it shows a purl, that is actually a purl stitch. So you're not having to reverse any of the symbols at all for the back side. So if you're more used to a different type of charting, this shows the front texture. So you can see here that there, once in a while you have a garter ridge in here, but mostly the texture is stockinette, is just straight stockinette stitch with slip stitches. So you can either, you can use one or the other. Okay, so if you want to see which yarn you're going to be using, take a look at the side here. So on the right side is always is going to start out with the yarn you're going to be using through that whole row. So this is a slip stitch pattern. You do not have to carry the yarn across your row. You will only be using one yarn at a time. So here the first 4 rows are color 1, and then the next 4 rows are color 2, and then 2 rows of color 1, 4 rows of color 2. So you can see along the edge here what color you're going to be using for the rest of the row. So here, this is showing you the fact that this has the color 1 colors in it. This is just showing you what it's going to look like as you're slipping the stitches. So instead of having to to carry your color 1 across here, you are just going to be slipping those color 1 stitches all the way up. And so that's going to create a little stripe here of color 1. This is, it's going to look, it's going to look a little wavy. So once you get this first part done, it's going to look wavy, and then this second portion here, that will offset it. So this is actually It doesn't cause waves like feather and fan. This is more, it's a little more honeycomb looking. A little bit, it's a little looking, it looks a little bit like smocking. But this is not a smocked stitch, but it does give that sort of impression when you're finished, because the slip stitches are going to kind of pull together a little bit. Okay, so I'm gonna just grab, okay, so what I want to start out with is the T increase here, and there's also a video on the T increase. So, so if it's not really clear here, watch the video too, and it's linked in your clue, so you should be fine. Okay, so in this, I have written the pattern so that there are markers around the center stitch. So when you do the T increase, it's going to make 3 stitches out of the center stitch here. So what I've said to do is you're going to take your markers out to work the T increase and then replace them. Okay, so here is my center stitch here. I'm going to slip it purlwise and then put it over the top of my needle. I still have my right needle in there. So these are the 2 legs of that stitch. And then I'm going to knit a stitch and pull the right leg off. So if you want, you can actually stick your marker back on as you're going here. So to get the center stitch, I'm going to knit through the center here. And let me get this, oops. My stitch markers. It's super dry here, like I have absolutely no moisture on my hands at all. And so I can't pick up the markers. Okay, so I'm going to put another marker on there, and then I'm going to knit this last leg over here on this side, and I'm going to come around through so that also twists. So that is my T increase. And let me scoot along here, and I will do it a few more times too, and I think I'm going to remove the pattern so in case that is distracting, and then I will show you again. So Judy says she loves the T increase. Yay! Yeah, I love it. I think it's so brilliant. It was invented by Asia Brill. And I think there are other people who say that they've been doing this forever, and it's not an invention, but what Asia did is to make it really elegant and make it, I think, just beautiful. The elegant simplicity in her moves are what makes this, I think. Okay. So let me say one thing about the chart that some of you may find a little odd. On the right side here, you can see that there is a KFB on this edge. And on the left side, you can see the KFB is 1 stitch before the edge. So that is because when you do a KFB, the new stitch that you create appears to the left of the old stitch. So what we're doing here is we have the old stitch on the edge, the new stitch on the inside, and then this second stitch for your edge. And then over here we have the old stitch and then the new stitch in between, and then the second stitch on the edge. So what basically is happening is the new stitch is always going to be in between these two edge stitches. And that's going to make it nice and even for you. So putting the KFB completely on the edge on this side is going to yield a slightly different look from what the right side looks like. So even though this looks like it's not symmetrical, on the chart, this actually is symmetrical when you knit it up. Okay, so Sunset, have not seen this before. Does it look nicer than KFB in front? I think so, yeah. I think that, and I will show you, I will show you how more of them look together. It's a really, really nice stitch. Okay, so here's a KFB. I'm going to knit into the front of the stitch and then into the back loop. And I'm just going to scoot over here to get to the T increase. So a KFB tends to be obvious, whereas this does not have a purl bump associated with it. So again, I'm just going to take both of these out. Okay, so here's what it looks like. You can barely see it. So here you can barely see at the base here where those stitches were formed. Okay, so I'm just going to put this back. This is the center stitch. I'm going to slip it purlwise, bring it over the top of the needle to knit a stitch, and then into the center. And if you want to use this on something that is a tighter gauge, you'll need to prepare a little bit differently, and that is in my tiny tutorial. So I'm just going to stick my marker here so I remember next time when I'm going back the other way, I'll remember to put the markers back in. Another thing you can do is use a piece of waste yarn and just kind of run it up if you don't want to keep moving those markers all the time. Okay. And after I do this, I will show you some of the slip stitches. I'm just going to scoot along here and remind myself. Another thing I do sometimes is I just don't actually move the markers. I have 3 stitches in the middle, and then on my wrong side row, I will just move the markers and put them back. Okay. And here we are back at the side. All right, so let's turn this over and kind of take a look at what this looks like. So you can kind of see now, and you will see when you start knitting this, there are no purl bumps. So one of the big things that I found with increases like a KFB or that's going to give you a purl bump in there. There's no purl bump. And if you use make one left and make one right in a long strand of these all the way up, you're going to have, it's going to look like it's kind of pulled away from the center of the spine, and it looks a little bit more obvious. So I did use a make one left and a make one right here and there in this chart, but one here and there isn't going to make the center look any less clean. And speaking of make one right and make one left, I will also show you how to do those. Okay. So there is a lot of background noise, sorry about that. Okay, so I do use make one left and make one right. So you can see right here, across here, and that is just because I thought it looked better in this particular instance right here. But I know that there are people out there, and I used to be one of them too, who had to look up the directions for make one left and make one right every single time. I used to do that every single time. So, so here's how I remember, and then I'll also tell you how I think that it is another good way to remember. So I always remember that when you do make one left, okay, so I'll get my piece of paper out here again. So when you do a make one left, the base twist is going to go left. So it's going to go like this. So here is a make one left, like that. So this twist goes to the left. On a make one right, it goes to the right. So if you don't remember and you need to figure out which is which, here's make one left and make one right. So just take a look at the base. So in here, quite a few times I've used these as pairs, but then also I have just used a plain make one, and that means it doesn't matter which one you choose to do. So I always choose to do the make one left it doesn't matter because it's easier. So, which brings me to the second way that people remember this, is that make one right is wrong. So make one right is much more difficult to do than make one left. So make one right is wrong. Okay, so make one left, I think is easy. You just pick up the bar from the back, you stick it up in your needle, and keep your right needle in that stitch. That's now a stitch. And just knit into it. And you can see, if you look really closely at the bottom, this twist is going to the left. And here we are with the make one right. So it's much more difficult. I come from the front. So when I do this, I always kind of pull that a little bit and leave my finger there so I can stick my needle in to twist it. And that is your make one right. You can see at the base that it is going to the right. So that one is much more difficult. Hence the make one right is wrong. So if it helps you to remember that way, you can always look at the base of the stitch to see if you got it right. And I'm just gonna go back the other way, and then I'm going to show you some stitches. So on this shawl, I just carried the unused yarn up the side, which means that on a couple of those stripes where there are 4 rows, you have to do a few little shenanigans to make it work out right. And we'll talk a little bit about that too. Meanwhile, let me see if I've missed anybody's questions. I love that you guys are chatting in the chat. that just makes me happy to see. I've missed you all. Okay. Alrighty. So here we have, you can kind of see more now how pretty that looks in the center. It's really neat and tidy. Okay, let's see. Oh, Sue McVicker is talking about nimble needles, and he is so good. I love watching his videos. He's so good, and he's sort of like a man after my own heart, where he's like really super picky. So I love that. Okay, I'll have to check out that video. Okay, let's see. Oh, I love the, Christina says, in the rear of the stitch, R can mean right and also mean real. Okay. So Nancy asked if I have gone back to smaller needles. Yes, I am using my working needles for this. So the only thing the larger needle is used for is just that bind off, and that's it. And my, so yeah, so everything else is working needles. So, sorry, people trying to be very quiet in the background, and it's making me laugh. Anyway, okay, so here we go. I'm just gonna show you how to do this. So I'm going to start, I'm going to bring my, my second color of yarn over. Okay. And when I do this, I just kind of tension it. Sorry about that. Here, I should move this up a little bit. When I add a yarn, I just tension it. You can do whatever you want though. However you like to switch yarns is completely fine. So I just kind of pinch them together here. And here's my second color. I'm just going to start using this. So going to do 1, 2, 3. Okay. So now when I want to slip my stitches, it's going to be just like if you were doing mosaic, or even, let's see, okay. Oh, so Sue just said she hasn't heard anything in the background. That is awesome. So my dog is being really quiet, which is, I'm blown away, but I'm not going to look at gift horse in the mouth. She has opinions, and sometimes she makes them known. Okay, so I'm just going to slip 3 stitches. And when I do that, I spread them out on my needle like this, so they don't pull together. So that's what it's going to look like on the back. So this is going to let you block out your shawl really nice. And let's just do a T increase in the middle, because why not? Okay, so okay, so here we come to 3 stitches again that I'm slipping. And I just keep those nice and spread out. So this can be easier to do if you are a continental knitter, because you're holding the yarn to the left. You're not pulling it back to the right, you're pulling it forward to the left. So it can be easier to keep it loose, but you can still do it as an English knitter. It just takes, I think, a little bit more getting used to. Okay, so here I am back on the back side. So now the yarn is going to stay in front, and I'm going to slip these. So this is what it looks like. You see those two strands across here. So basically, you're not trying to pull it in. What you're trying to do is just keep it nice and on the loose side, not sloppy loose, but you know, on the loose side, so that you can block your shawl out. So now if you were doing this English style, again, don't laugh at my English style knitting, please. Okay, so now I'm just going to slip these three, and I'm gonna really work on keeping those spread out so that I don't pull it too tight across there. So after a while, you will, excuse me, I have kind of a frog in my throat. After a while, you will get more used to it, and it will be nothing. Okay. All right, so let's turn this over. So because this is a 4-row stripe, I like to bring my my color one up, and I twist it around my color 2. So I actually twist it a couple of times like this. So I'm not saying you have to do this. Do it however you like to do it. This is just my little quirk. I like it when the yarn is kind of tucked in up the side. So now I have this wrapped around, and I'm going to continue with my color 2. Okay, so this is still, I did not pull the color 1 tight. So let's go across here, and when I'm finished with these, I will show you a way to keep it loose if you find that you're having problems with that. And you probably heard my dog shaking herself just now. She was really loud. She shakes herself like, I mean, it's like a 7.0 earthquake. She shakes herself so hard. I've never seen a dog shake herself that hard. It's like she's shaking off the cares of the world. Okay. It's very, very hot today, so she's been kind of hanging out in her little doggy playpen, sleeping on the rug, happy as a clam. Yay. Hi, Peggy. I'm glad you're not laughing. That makes me feel better. Okay. This yarn is really sticky, which is great for color work. If you're, this is Biche Bouche, and it's really nice. I love their yarn, and it's really reasonably priced, and they're really nice people. So that always makes things better too. Okay. Just reposition my stitch markers. almost to the edge now. So when you carry yarn up the side like this and you have like a 4-row stripe, it can tend to get a little bit tight in here. So here is what I did when I was working on my shawl. I'm bringing up my color 1 again here. So you can see how it's kind of, it's carried up the side here. I twisted the yarn around. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is create like a temporary yarn over. So here's my color 1. I'm gonna, just like we did on the inner circle, or sorry, the inner triangle, I'm doing a yarn over at the beginning of the row here, but I'm going to drop it when I come back. So, and that is going to let me have just like a little bit extra yarn in this area right here, so that I'm not going to get it too tight, because invariably I was getting it too tight. So I'll show you what that looks like when I come back the other way. And be thinking of any extra questions that I might not have covered. Oh, you know what? I have something. When you are slipping, someone asked about which way the stitches are slipped when doing SSKs, and also when you're doing a slip stitch pattern like this. So stitches can be slipped for numerous reasons. In the case of an SSK, a stitch is slipped in order to reorient the stitch so that instead of having the right leg in front, the right leg is in left. Is in the back. So to do that, you're going to slip the stitch knitwise, and that's going to reorient your stitch. When you have a pattern like this, it's a slip stitch pattern, you want to slip your stitches purlwise so that the stitches stay oriented in the same way that they were on your needle. And again, this is assuming that your stitches are oriented with your right leg in front and your left leg in back. So if you weren't with me last week and you have more questions about that, I did talk more about it, and I kind of showed the difference between an Eastern and a Western purl. And we talked a little bit about combination knitting. So definitely check it out if you think you may be having problems. Okay, so I'm at the end here. Here's my temporary yarn over right here, and I'm just going to knit these two through the back loop, and then at the end I'm just going to drop that off completely, and that is going to keep my edge nice and loose. So this is what it looks like. You have these stitches going up, and when you're using the mohair, it gives a really nice fuzz in the midst of your other yarn. So let me see. I'm not going to say, so Carp says, I never knew how that yarn company was pronounced. So, so I'm not going to say how the people at this, I think it was Hill Country Weavers, how they pronounce it, because if I say it, then my my video will not be rated. I won't be G-rated. So you're not the only one. Okay. So that is what that looks like. And look at that. I've kind of run over time. I try to keep these down to like about an hour, but it doesn't always work that way. So sometimes I go over, and I was blabbing a lot today, I guess. Anyway, so does anyone have any questions or anything? Exactly, Sue said I have to keep the PG rating. Yes, I have to keep my rating. Does anyone have any questions or anything? And also, I do actually look around on the threads and stuff like that, and I like see people questions and stuff like that. So if you have any questions or anything and I didn't answer, just let me know, and I will take a look. And I do add some to my newsletter as well. So my last newsletter, I also answered a couple of questions. So don't be shy. Ask all the questions, and there's always also someone around to say what's going on or help or whatever. So yeah. So thank you so much for joining me, and I'm so glad. Oh, Catherine, that makes me feel so good that you learned a lot. That makes me feel great. I'm glad that it was helpful. And so don't be a stranger if you have questions. I love to help. And if you would, I would love it if you would like and subscribe. So have a great week. Enjoy your clue number 2, and I will be back next week with clue number 3. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.